Stephanie. We do have our first coach on this week's call, Greg Lansing of Indiana State. The Sycamores closing out the regular season with a home game against Northern Iowa on Wednesday, and then at Evansville Saturday to end the regular season in Evansville. Both games will be seen on the Valley on ESPN3. At this time, we'd like to welcome Coach Lansing to the phone. Good morning, Greg.
Morning, Mike.
If you could talk about the Northern Iowa game, close game at their place just a couple of games ago, and preview Wednesday's game for us, and then we'll open it up for some questions for you.
Yeah, it was a game we played pretty well for the most part. They had a couple good spurts, but having the lead in the second half and a couple miscues at the offensive end turned into a three for Morgan, and just plays down the stretch. They had guys really step up and make plays down the stretch, whereas we didn't. And it was another close game. We've only had 17 of them this year, but we just didn't do enough to win it.
Thank you, Greg. Let's get now to questions for you. Questions for Coach Lansing from the media.
Please press star and the number 1 to ask a question. Star and the number 1. Again, that's star and the number 1 to ask a question.
Coach, no questions appearing in the queue. I'm not going to keep you on the line. Thanks for your time this morning.
Right. Thanks, Mike.
We'll see you Wednesday night. We'll hold for just a moment until our next coach joins us. Just a couple of conference notes before we move forward. Conference tournament seedings will be known on Sunday morning, February 26th. If we need to use the Collegiate Basketball News RPI as a tiebreaker, we will announce the pairings on Sunday morning. If there are no ties that are broken strictly by head-to-head competition, we will announce the seeds on Saturday evening. Most notably, Illinois State and Wichita State tied atop the standings with 15-1 league records. In league history, in the NCAA tournament era, there have been 10 teams that were eligible for the NCAA tournament that have won 16 conference games. All 10 reached the NCAA tournament either as the AQ or an at-large, combining for 12 NCAA tournament wins. The Valley is one of 4 conferences currently with 2 teams with 23-plus wins. That includes the American, the Pac-12, the Missouri Valley, and the West Coast Conference with 2 teams at 23 or more victories. Our next coach to join us will be Ben Jacobson of Northern Iowa. The Panthers have won 9 of 11, losing only to league leaders Illinois State and Wichita State in that span. Northern Iowa looking to become the first team to start a league season 0-5 and then finish with a better than 500 record. The first team since Oklahoma back in 1925. The Sooners that year started 0-5 and finished the league season with a 9-7 record. Panthers also have avoided a Thursday night opening round tournament appearance with their 9-7 record. They become just the second team in the league's 10-team tournament format. Illinois State was the other to start 0-5 or worse and avoid Thursday's opening round. And we do have Coach Ben Jacobson on the line now. As mentioned before, the Panthers open up their week with a game at Indiana State on Wednesday. Close out the league regular season with a home game against Illinois State on Saturday. The Wednesday game on ESPN3. The Saturday game will be on CBS Sports Network. At this time, we'd like to welcome Coach Ben Jacobson to the line. Good morning, Coach.
Hey, good morning, Mike.
Could you give us a quick preview of Indiana State? Just played them a couple of weeks ago. You got away with a narrow victory. They played pretty well at your place, but you win by 5. What needs to happen for you to win in Terre Haute on Wednesday?
Yeah, well, they've continued to play pretty well. Obviously, I'm sure they didn't feel good about the game at Loyola, but you take that one out of it. They had us down double figures in the second half, and then turned around and won at Bradley. They beat Drake by quite a bit, and played a close game yesterday against Southern. So 4 of the last 5, they've really played well. Rickman gave us he was a handful for us in our game, and looks like he's continued to play very well for him. I think Clemens is playing as well as he has played. In his time at Indiana State, he looks like a senior who's coming down the home stretch and playing great. Just doing a lot of things for him. So, and then obviously we know about Brent and Van Soik and what you got to get done there. But I think they're playing as good as they've played all year.
Thank you, Coach. Let's get now to questions for Coach Ben Jacobson. Questions from the media.
Press star and the number 1 to ask your question. Again, star and the number 1. Our first question comes from the line of Harry Schroeder with the Valley Hoops Insider.
Ben, hey, you guys haven't majored on transfers, meaning you've done a lot of freshman guys and then redshirting them or bringing them along, and a lot of other teams will use maybe more of a mix of newcomers. Can you talk a little bit about that philosophy?
Yeah, it started when we first got here, Harry. Our first conversations in terms of recruiting, really centered on our ability to recruit the best high school players in the state of Iowa, and then close to us. And for pretty simply put, we have stayed with that all the way through. In the years or couple years where we went to the NCAA tournament and we were playing at a tremendously high level, we continued to stay with that plan in terms of recruiting the best high school players in the state, and then the states that are right around us. And in the couple of years where we weren't playing at that same high level, we had the stretch in between 2010 and 2015 where we didn't get out of the first round of the conference tournament, and we had some decent teams. The NIT one of those years and a couple of CITs. So we were okay, but not at not at the highest level. And we continued to stay true to that and recruit the best high school players that we could get to come to our place. It's been a great formula for us, and our ability to redshirt guys and have them here and have them be a part of what we're doing, so they understand the expectations as they get older. That's been a big deal to us. And then I would say, it hasn't been a lot of guys, but last year would be a good example, in having or recruiting, Wes Washburn and Paul Jesperson. They were 2 guys that we recruited out of high school and had a great opportunity when they did transfer, Paul from Virginia and Wes from Tennessee, to get back involved. And obviously those 2 guys, what they did both their junior and senior year, the part they played in those 2 seasons as transfers was obviously important to us being able to do that. So, we'll research those guys, but we're going to continue to. And I don't know if it's 90%, Harry, or 85 or 95. The majority of our time is going to continue to be spent on high school guys. It's been a great formula for us.
Do you remember an impact transfer making any more impact than Alize Johnson at Missouri State? He's had such a great year.
No, for sure not in his first year. And I'm trying to run through some guys right now, Harry, in my mind as you ask the question. But I feel pretty confident in being able to tell you. I don't remember a guy in his first year having the impact and putting up the kind of numbers that Johnson has. Maybe there was a guy who got into his second year as a senior and was as dominant as Johnson has been for his team. And offhand, I wouldn't know who that would be with the season that Johnson's had. But yeah, I don't think there's any question. He's had either the best or one of the best years for a first-year transfer guy in our league.
Thanks a lot, Ben. Best of luck.
Yep, thanks, Eric.
Your next question is from Jim Benson with the Bloomington Pantograph.
Ben, Jeremy Morgan will be playing his final game at your place on Saturday. A lot has been thrown on his plate this year as a senior. Could you just kind of talk about how this year has gone from him and how he's kind of responded to a lot of challenges, really?
Yeah, and I'm really proud of Jeremy for the year that he's put together. There's with the graduation of 5 guys 2 years ago when Jeremy was a sophomore, and then Wes and Bo and Paul, who I've talked a lot about over the course of the last 6 months. their graduation last year. That's eight guys that Jeremy, was around, and 8 guys that did the almost all of the leadership and especially the important part of the leadership, and that's when us as coaches aren't around. So he had some great examples, but at the same time, coming into this year, he's the only guy that had been a part of all that to the level, to a really high level. Wyatt, Bennett, Clint, Ted, those guys had been around and been a part of it, but not in the same playing role that Jeremy had been in, and obviously they aren't seniors this year. So for him, that's a lot to handle. That's a lot of responsibility to take over, and he's just he's done a great job of it in terms of being able to increase his productivity offensively, increase his scoring, but still able to do all of the things that he's been good at for his entire career with us. So I'm proud of him. I think he's done a great job. And we've got the 4 freshmen that are playing a lot, and Jordan Ashton's a new transfer, and Hunter Rhodes is a new transfer, and with that kind of turnover in our program this year, for Jeremy to be able to do what he's done, get our guys, rallied and turned around from that 0-5 start. He and Jordan deserve a tremendous amount of credit for getting us turned around and getting us all the way to where we're at now, and sitting in the spot we're in as we head down the stretch. And that's not easy to do with that many young guys on your team when you're, there's 2 seniors, but he's the only one that's been here the entire time. So, yeah, he's done great.
Thanks, Ben.
Yep, thanks, Jim.
Jake, that was your last question. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you on Wednesday night.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Ben. We do have Coach Brian Wardle of Bradley opening up the week with a Wednesday home game against Missouri State, closing it out at Drake on Saturday. Both games will be seen on the Valley on ESPN3. Morning, Coach.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, if you could talk about the Missouri State game and preview the game against the Bears on Wednesday, and then we'll open it up for some questions for you.
Well, it's obviously our last home game, and we want to try to end on a good note. Missouri State's playing real well. I mean, they've been in a lot of close games and a lot of close games as of late. Very explosive team offensively with Miller and Johnson lead the way. And we had a good game with them at their place, 4-point game with 3 or 4 minutes to go. We just started the game very slowly. We let a couple guys really beat us, and we need to play a lot better defensively Wednesday night than we did the first time we played them. So it's going to be a big game for us. We want to try to end this season on a strong note. We're playing better basketball. There's no doubt of what I see on film. It's just a matter of, again, for us, putting it all together for 40 minutes, and could come away with, hopefully some good performances here this last week.
Thank you, Brian. Let's get now to questions for you from the media. Questions for Coach Brian Wardle.
Please press star and the number 1 on your telephone keypad. That's star and the number 1. Again, that's star and the number 1 to ask a question.
Brian, you mentioned your team was playing a little bit better basketball. Great second half against Evansville. Kind of go through the progression of that second half and how you rallied from a pretty decent deficit to beat them by 12.
Well, we played well in the first half. It was a good game throughout. We just came out and had a little lull to start the second half. We had to re-energize a little bit. We had to get our focus together. We struggled to score to start the second half. I liked what we were getting and some of the looks we were getting. It was just a matter of tightening up defensively so we can get out in transition and get some stops so we can get on a run, and that's what we were able to do. I thought defensively we turned our energy level up. We were very good the last 10 minutes of the game, and that led to good offense and ball movement, and we were sharing the ball, and it was a good win for us. I mean, we needed to come from behind win this year with this young group, just because it's another experience to kind of put on our belt, if you would say, for us, hopefully in the future. But it was a nice win, but like we've talked about with this group all the time, it's over with, and we got to move on and continue to learn and grow as a group.
Coach, thank you for your time this morning. Good luck against Missouri State this Wednesday.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. We are a couple minutes ahead of our next scheduled coach, where we're going to keep forging ahead. We do have Paul Lust of Missouri State on the line with us. Missouri State, as you know, will play at Bradley to open up the week and then close at home against Wichita State on Saturday. This time we'd like to welcome Coach Paul Lust to the line. Good morning, Coach.
Morning, Mike.
Nice win at Drake. Finally got a close one. As you know, the Bears have been in too many close games on the wrong side of the ledger this year, but nice win at Drake the other night.
It was. I thought it was probably our best week, maybe of the season, although the results weren't there, in particular against Illinois State. But I thought we played very, very solid basketball and had a chance to win the game. But we, as a team, we shot 53% from the foul line, and that was the only negative. Everything else was right there, but credit Illinois State. Then I thought we came back and, we were able to get a nice road win against Drake.
Bradley, on Wednesday, could you preview what needs to happen for you guys to when you did get them at your place earlier in the season by 14? Talk about the rematch against the Braves.
Well, they're all important, and this will be a very difficult game on the road. Obviously, they just beat an Evansville team who was as hot as anyone in our league. I don't know if Evansville had won 4 or 5 straight, but they were playing excellent basketball, and that's an outstanding win for Bradley. So we'll have to play good basketball in all areas. Obviously their assist total was very impressive against Evansville. The way they shot the basketball, the threes allowed them to get back into it. That's just a great win for them.
Thank you, Paul. Let's get now to questions for you. Questions for Coach Paul Lust of Missouri State from the media.
Please press star and the number 1 to ask a question. Please press star and the number 1. Our first question is from Harry Schroeder with the Valley Hoops Insider.
Hey, Paul, we've talked about Alizé Johnson all year. I mean, I know you have with lots of different people. What about him surprises you, if anything, at this point? And could you have anticipated how just really good he was going to be?
Nothing really surprises me. He's a great young man. He works hard. He's a scrapper. He's a guy that it's not like he's getting both elbows above the rim. He's just a scrapper, and he went through a little bit of a tough stretch here recently, but he sticks with it. He keeps working, and he's been very good. I mean, but to predict 20 rebound games or all of the double-doubles, we knew that he would rebound the basketball. I think the areas that he's improved in drastically since he's got on campus has been his 3-point shooting. He's really worked on his stroke. He was struggling from the free throw line earlier in the year, but he's improved that. And there are a lot of areas he has to continue to improve on. But at this time of the year, Henry, you need your guys playing their best basketball, and I thought he had a good week last week.
And then probably your other biggest, newer player, not like a freshman, is Rhodes. Just talk about his season.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all those guys are first-year guys, and a week ago, Jared Rhodes, he was both of them in particular. I don't care if you're a freshman or a junior college kid. It's a long season. They've never been through this type of season on the junior college level or the high school level, and it's just a matter of those guys busting through and getting re-energized and producing. And I thought Jared Rhodes, who had been struggling, had a really good week last week. He was excellent against Illinois State, really helped us, and then obviously he was very good against Drake, excluding the turnovers. So as with all of these guys, at this time of the year, you have to produce, and you have to be ready to play. And as I told those guys, they're getting the opportunities to play. They've got to step up and produce, and and I think they did last week, but we'll need to continue that as we move forward.
Thanks, Paul. Good luck.
Thank you.
Coach, that was the final question for you. Thanks for your time this morning, and good luck this week.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Paul. We do have Coach Barry Hinson of Southern Illinois on the line with us. The Salukis will open up play this week with a game at Illinois State on Wednesday, back at home to play Loyola on Saturday in Carbondale. The game on Wednesday will be on the NBC television network, and the game on Saturday will be on the Valley on ESPN3. At this time, we'd like to welcome Coach Barry Hinson to the phone. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning, guys.
Talk about your first game of the week. That's the game at Illinois State. It's senior night, pretty emotional. They got 4 seniors, 3 that are large contributors to that team. Talk about the Redbirds on Wednesday, and then we'll open it up for some questions for you.
I think it's like interviewing Daniel right before you go on the lines, Dan. So it's a big game for everybody. But you're right. I think senior nights to me are, in all honesty, are my favorite game of the year, and I think it's a time when you really have to pay tribute to those young men who decided to represent your program for whether it's been 2, 3, 4, or 5 years. And it's an emotional night, and I think you always find your teams at their best. And we know that they have 4 seniors, and we know we're going to catch their best shot, and not only because of senior night, because they have to win. So we get it. So hopefully it'll be a heck of a game.
Thank you, Coach. Let's get now to questions for Coach Barry Hinson, questions from the media.
Press star and the number 1 to ask a question. Star and the number 1. Our first question is from Todd Hefferman with the Southern Newspaper.
Hey, Barry, when you're trying to, you're ahead and you're trying to take the shot clock down a little bit, how do you balance getting a good shot at the end and shooting too early, or not getting a shot at all sometimes?
Well, I think, Todd, that every coach will tell you it depends on who's got the ball. The ball is in a certain person's hand, and for us, it's always Michael Rodriguez. And I would say that Michael's decision process has been much better here as of late, and it's something that we work on in practice quite often, because shot clock plays are more prevalent now with the drop of the shot clock going down to 30 seconds. So, teams that run a secondary break and then run any type of motion or continuity or a set or whatever, if it doesn't work, then you're caught with the shot clock. And I know this day and age, everybody's talking about how many shot clock plays there are. Well, you're seeing now, because of the drop in the shot clock timing, that's pretty much it is. Now, we've always had a standard shot clock play, but now we've started changing it per game, and I think that's helped us, and I think it's certainly helped our decision making process.
And how encouraged were you by Teague's play yesterday, and if he can be an offensive option, how big that'll help your team with O'Brien playing as well as he is right now?
Well, I think anytime your bigs play well, and specifically around the basket, I just think it frees up everybody on the perimeter. And what you saw yesterday, or what we witnessed yesterday, hopefully was not an anomaly, but we think that's the way that young man can play. And it was certainly it was a game to remember. I wish his brother could come to every game, and I told his brother after the game yesterday what an honor that is to him to have a family member to play that well when a family member's in the house.
Thanks, Barry.
Thanks, Todd.
Barry, I asked you to focus on the Illinois State game, but it'll be your senior night for your guys on Saturday. Talk about the guys that are going to be leaving your program. I know Sean O'Brien's been there for 4 years, but talk about him specifically about Sean.
Well, it's an incredibly emotional night. It will be an incredibly emotional night for me, because you make a connection to these guys, Leo Vincent and Michael Rodriguez, our 2 East Coast guys, one from Philly and one from Boston, and the contributions they've made over the 2 years. And then the emotional part of it, more so than anything, is Sean O'Brien, because Sean elected to come here when nobody else would. And we convinced Sean the contributions that he could make for his 4 years. And I think when you look back, and you see what all he's done for us, and you see where he is on the Saluki record books, I think he'll be proud of his accomplishments. We hope, and I want it more for those seniors more than anything, that we have an opportunity to play in postseason, and because that would be my goal specifically for those three guys.
Thank you, Coach. That's all the questions we have for you today. Good luck this week.
Thanks, Mike. Have a great day.
Yeah, we'll see you in St. Louis next week. We are just a couple minutes ahead of our next scheduled coach. It will be Marty Simmons of Evansville, and we'll hold for just a minute. I'll run through some conference notes in the interim. Wichita State has climbed to number 2 in the nation in scoring margin. The Shockers at 19.3 points per game scoring margin, behind only Gonzaga at 23.7. Wichita State and Illinois State, meanwhile, both threatening the league's all-time record for field goal percentage defense. Wichita State at 37.4, Illinois State at 37.7. Both would rank number 1 and 2 all-time in the Missouri Valley history, and both are in the top 5 nationally this year. Central Florida leads the nation at 35.9. Wichita State's figure is 3rd. Illinois State's figure is 5th. For the 7th time in the league's tournament history, which will be 40 years plus this year, the 41st, the league will have 2 teams with 23-plus wins, and that'll be the 3rd straight year. Northern Iowa, Wichita State in 2015 were the winningest pair. Both teams had 27 wins entering Arch Madness that year. Last year, Evansville and Wichita State entered Arch Madness with 23 apiece. And this year, Wichita State and Illinois State entered the final week of the regular season with 25 and 23 wins, respectively. And we do have Coach Marty Simmons on the line with us. Evansville opening up its week with a game tomorrow night at Wichita State. Back at home to close out the regular season with a home game against Indiana State on Saturday. The Saturday game will be on the Valley on ESPN3, as will tomorrow night's game from Wichita State. Good morning, Marty.
Good morning, Mike.
Let's talk about your game tomorrow night against Wichita State. If you open it up with a comment about the Shockers, and then we will open it up for some questions for you from the media.
Yeah, they're don't see any weaknesses, Mike. Just a very talented team, got great length, obviously great depth, smart, high basketball IQ, really know how to play. Then you add all that together, and they really, they compete. They play really hard. I think they're a team that has a chance to go a long way in the tournament.
Yeah, and your team is a little bit different than the last time you had played them in terms of contributions from other guys. Talk about what's happened in the last 6 or 7 games for you. You've won 4 in a row before losing at Bradley, but talk about what's been different for your ball club.
I think more than anything, Mike, just being able to win. Our guys have been really, really good the entire year. We've had some adversity like every other team in America, and they've handled it, like men, and haven't used it as an excuse. Continue to come and work hard and try to get better. And a lot of times, even when you're not having success, you can still be improving. We felt like that's what was happening with our team, and then you get a couple breaks and you win a game or two, and guys really get to feeling good about themselves. And Boo Gibson has battled injuries all year, has stepped up and played well. Christian Benson has done a nice job. David Howard is another guy that has really played well in the last 8 or 9 games for us.
Thanks, Marty. Let's get now to questions for you from the media. Questions for Coach Marty Simmons.
Press star and the number 1 to ask your question. Our first question comes from Paul Sullentrop with the Wichita Eagle.
Marty, could you tell us a little bit more about David Howard? His play over the last 5 or 6 games seems really noticeable. What's he been doing that's been good for you?
He's been really aggressive, Paul. He's done a nice job of getting the ball in positions, and our guys have done a good job of getting him in the ball in there where he can score. I mean, he's a really skilled post player. He can score over either shoulder. He's done a better job, making his free throws. But really, Paul, like the rest of our guys, he got a little taste of success, and I think that really helped him, and he's probably playing with as much confidence right now as he has in his entire career.
When I look at some of the offensive numbers, it seems like Evansville has really improved over the last 5 or 6 games. You had Jalen and Ryan, who are really scoring well for you. Is part of the story that you've had a couple other guys like David and Christian supplement their offense? Absolutely.
Boo had, I think, 27 at SIU, and like any team, and that's what I think makes your team so difficult is you have so many guys that are threats, and you can beat teams offensively in so many different ways. And when we have others step up and contribute along with JB and Ryan, it makes us a much more effective offensive team.
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you.
Marty, that is the only line of questioning we have for you this morning. Thanks for your time, and good luck in Wichita.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. A couple minutes ahead of schedule. Our next scheduled coach will be Porter Moser of Loyola. Loyola opening up the week Wednesday with a game against Drake at home, and then at Southern Illinois to close out the regular season against the Salukis. We'll hold for just a moment. Earlier we talked a little bit about close losses. Missouri State, 7 losses by 3 points or less this year. That's second in the nation behind Mercer, who has 8. Missouri State tied with Texas, Kennesaw State, and Bryant with 7 losses by 3 points or less. Loyola, second in the league with 5 on that list. And we do have Coach Porter Moser of Loyola on the line with us. Loyola, again, opening up this week with a home game against Drake, and then closing out the regular season at Southern Illinois on Saturday. Both games will be on the Valley on ESPN3. At this time, I'd like to welcome Coach Porter Moser to the line. Morning, Coach.
Morning, Mike.
Well, let's talk about, as we visited yesterday, it's senior night against Drake. Milton Doyle's meant a lot to your program and our league. He's an active leading scorer. Talk a little bit about Milt, and then we'll open it up for some questions about the Drake game.
Well, and obviously it'll be an emotional night. Milt's meant a lot to us, being his last home game, and I'm happy for him. He's having a really, really good senior year, and I know he wants this next couple weeks to go really well, and obviously play well. But for him, his mentality, I know him the way he is right now. He really wants to win this game more than any individual stats. He hasn't. He's playing the best that he's played because he had a great off season. He's really focused on a lot of different things, but I really, for him, it's going to be an emotional night being his last home game.
Yeah, and talk about the Drake game. You played him seemingly a year ago, and actually was last year in the conference opener. Talk about the Bulldogs and what needs to happen for you guys to slip out a win this Wednesday.
Jeff's done an amazing job with these guys. I mean, they play really hard. They space the floor. They run really good stuff. I mean, they're really hard to guard because they're putting it on the deck, and they got so many different guys that can shoot it. And we weren't ready for it. We didn't do a good job with it, and they really exposed us in the first game. That's the most I think I've ever given up in regulation. We gave up 100 points, and they're really hard to guard. Timmer, Ori's playing really well. Wampler, McMurray. They got a lot of different guys that can shoot it. Woodward, all can shoot it and drive it, and they're just hard to guard.
Thank you, Coach. Let's get now to questions for Coach Porter Moser. Questions from the media.
Press star and the number 1 to ask your question. Star and the number 1. Our first question is from Harry Schroeder with the Valley Hoops Insider.
Hey, Porter, we're right at the end of the year, and you're two, I would say, maybe your major kind of transfer guys, Andre and Clayton. Just talk about their seasons and what they've meant to you guys this year.
I'll start with Clayton. Clayton's really taken some pressure off Milt. I mean, Milt had the ball in his hands so much the previous couple of years. We haven't had that other true point, and Clayton's another guy that can take some pressure off Milt with creating some things off the dribble, with handling the ball. He gives you another primary ball handler. But Clayton's had some big games for us, and we're really hoping that it leads down the stretch as well. But I think Milt's benefited from Clayton the most, and obviously Clayton plays really well with Ben. Andre, losing Montel James, when you lose an inside presence, like we had with Montel, Andre's been right there, almost putting up bigger numbers offensively. And his defense has really improved since the beginning of the conference. So, I think he's getting better as the year goes, like a lot of junior college guys does. And, but for him, he gives us an inside presence that's really been a positive for us, after losing Montel James.
And then you bringing him off the bench versus starting him, is it just a thing in his head that he's better that way?
No, you know what? I think it was probably just something, earlier in the year. I think defensively we were really trying to, Maurice Kirby does some things better defensively, and then it just kind of stuck. And, he's, I'll quote a Majerus quote. Majerus used to tell the guys starting's for high school. Andre's like a starter. I mean, he comes in 2 minutes into the game. He plays starter minutes. It's just something we just haven't changed since we kind of went to it, early in the conference season. So it's something that it's not a big deal to us. It's not a big deal to him. He's going to play, starter minutes, and he comes in pretty quick.
Appreciate it, Porter. Thanks.
Thanks, Harry.
Our next question comes from Todd Hefferman with the Southern Newspaper.
Porter, where do you think you're improving as a team right now?
I think defensively we're getting better, and that's something that that we've had to have. I think we've gotten better defensively. I think we played really well defensively against Indiana State. I think we played better yesterday against Illinois State defensively. So I think those areas we're getting better. I really I think Cam Satterwhite's played really well off the bench. We've been talking about getting some depth, and he's had some good games off the bench, giving us a spark because we're not deep, and we need that depth. So I think he's coming into where a more confident role off the bench where it gives us another guy in the rotation to give Milt, Ben, and Clayton and Dante a rest. So him and Bruno Skokna, I think, are playing better than they were early in the conference, as freshmen usually do. So I think that's a positive for us.
And you guys have been in almost every single game the last 6 here. Who's really helped keep your team together, confidence-wise, to play so well at Illinois State and play so well at Evansville and those close losses, but still come back and try to make a run here at the end of the season?
I know it's crazy to say. You can look. We only won 2 road games in the league, but we played every single. Wichita was down to 4. With a couple minutes left. Northern Iowa went to double overtime. Missouri State overtime. Evansville 2. Illinois State 2. I mean, we've bet, and then we've won 2 on the road. And it isn't one person keeping the confidence. It's the culture that's keeping the confidence. I've said it all year long. I think we got great culture. The guys are right back at it the next practice after a tough loss, and our mind goes forward. I think the culture's really good about moving forward, what do we got to do to the next game? And they believe in each other. They really like each other. We got a close-knit group, and I think it's not one person keeping the confidence; it's the culture.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Porter, that was your last question. Thanks for your time this morning. Good luck this week.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, bye-bye. And we do have Coach Jeff Rudder of Drake on the line with us. The Bulldogs opening up their week with a game at Loyola, closing it out at home against Bradley on Saturday. Both games on the Valley on ESPN3. Good morning, Jeff.
Hey, good morning, Mike. How are you?
How are you?
Yep, doing okay.
Good. Loyola did preview the game for you guys, and it was a long time ago when you first met. Talk about the offensive juggernaut you had in your first meeting and what you need to do to win on Wednesday.
Yeah, that was quite a shootout at our place. Both teams, really played well, scored the basketball. They made a good run on us late. We were able to hold them off. Just a very talented team. Porter Mosier's done a great job with this group. A lot of bullets, of course. Yesterday's game just shows that playing Illinois State. Needless to say, on the road, very, very difficult task, and went toe-to-toe with them. We will need to find a way to, keep them in check offensively. Again, just one of the best offensive groups in the league. Need to find a way to get stops and to hold our own on the boards, and we will need to be able to shoot the basketball and knock down some shots against these guys.
Thank you, Jeff. Let's get out of questions for you. Questions from the media for Coach Jeff Rudder.
Press star and the number 1 to ask your question. Star and the number 1. Our first question is from Harry Schroeder with the Valley Hoops Insider.
Hey, Jeff, can you talk a little bit about McMurray's impact on your team? I know he wasn't playing quite as much, and then you guys inserted him in the lineup when you guys kind of had that mid-season resurgence. Just talk about him.
Yeah, no, DK's been a terrific addition for us. He's provided us not just playmaking ability, as he proved the other day with 7 assists, but also his ability to score the ball, to shoot the three, and has really worked hard defensively to be a good defender as well. Awesome young guy, super coachable, great teammate. Just a really good pass, dribble, shoot guard. And we feel with guys like Timmer and Graham Woodward has really come on here as well mid-season, along with the kind of development of Ori Aragondade, Billy Wampler playing 3 and 4, C.J. Rivers at a wing position. We've got a handful of perimeter guys that, again, can give us a lot of that pass, dribble, shoot ability, along with, helping us get some defensive stops.
On DT's three-point shooting, he's so much better in the league than prior to conference. Is that just him getting more playing time and more confident, or just happenstance?
Yeah, no, a couple things. I would say certainly, more confidence and just feeling more comfortable. A lot of times, whether you're a freshman or a transfer, just can oftentimes take a little bit of time just to get adjusted with the new system, your teammates, the level of play. We've tried to, got a handful of guys that, again, everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, but we have a handful of guys where their strength is the ability to shoot the three. So, we've tried to embrace that and tried to get anywhere from 25 to 30 threes a game. And he is certainly one of our, top 5 3-point threats. And so, if he has a clean look, Harry, we want him to rise up and take that again. He's done a great job. Graham Woodward in particular, Reed as well. Shoot all these guys. Ori, they got their own, they take it. But when someone's got a better look, they're moving that thing. And man, we had some stretches of play Saturday night against Missouri State. Really pushed it in transition, made some misses, and really shared the basketball. And whoever it was, when they had a clean look, they rose up and thought process as best shot in the world, and let it rip. And he gave us a lot of great minutes, and has been, really all season long.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Harry.
Coach, looks like that was the last question for you today. Thank you for your time this morning. Good luck this week.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. Bye.
All right. Thank you. Next scheduled coach will be Dan Muller of Illinois State. We'll have Coach Muller on in just a moment. And we do have Coach Muller with us now, and welcome Coach Dan Muller to the phone. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm great. How you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. Talk about your games this week. We'll start with Southern Illinois. Your final regular season home game against the Salukis will be Wednesday, and then you're on the road later this week against Northern Iowa. But preview the game against the Salukis Wednesday for us.
Yeah, everybody knows senior night for any team is a special night. Honoring our senior players and managers, and we've got some really good ones. So hopefully we handle the emotions well. Southern played terrific in their last game. We all know how good a coach Barry is, and they present some problems for us. It's a very close game at their place, our first matchup. It's been a while, so hopefully we'll be ready to go.
Thank you, Dan. Let's get now to the questions for Coach Dan Muller of Illinois State, questions from the media.
Please press star and the number 1 to ask your question. Our first question is from Jim Benson with the Bloomington Pentagraph.
Morning, Dan.
Hey, Jim.
Will Mikhail be able to go Wednesday? What's the updated story on his injury he suffered, it seemed, at the end of the game yesterday?
Well, nobody said he suffered an injury yet, first of all, but I'm not sure yet. We'll have to wait and see. I don't know if I'll know before Wednesday or tomorrow, but there's no update as of right now.
If he isn't able to go, because you guys were able to play 5 games without him, does that make it a little easier? Or obviously he's a huge part of the team, but kind of for Wednesday, how does that kind of impact the preparation?
Well, I hope so, Jim. It's our rhythm right now, as I talked about last night, is not great, and it's hard to have a player come in and out of the lineup. I don't care where you're at. It's not just kind of plug and play. I hope so. I honestly am not sure right now. I'd like to get us back to full strength. Again, Madison is still a question mark. We'd like to get him back in the mix. But I don't think we're going to be playing our best basketball again until we have everybody in there with the right rotations and get used to playing together. So I'm not sure. I do think it's helped that we played without him. I could say that, but I don't know how much.
Has he seen a doctor yet today, or is that coming up later?
No, he hadn't seen the doctor yesterday, no.
Okay.
I mean, he saw the doctor after the game last night, Jim. Again, I think he's going to be okay, but I really don't have anything to update.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Your next question is from Nick Schultz with the Loyola Phoenix.
Morning, Coach. I'm doing a preview on Arch Madness because it's already a week away. It's crazy to think about.
It sure
so I'm
is.
just wondering how you guys at the top of the conference are preparing, because anything can happen in St. Louis, and it was a close game with our Ramblers yesterday. So how are you guys kind of preparing for next week?
Well, very close game. Lucky to come away with the win. I think our guys recently, Nick, have focused a little bit too much on the championship and maybe even St. Louis, and I think I've done a bad job with that. We're going to try to get back to just focusing on the day-to-day process that we all talk about. I'm probably not going to bring up next week again until we get there, and I have brought it up a few times over the last month or so. But we obviously are playing for something really important right now. We know we've got 2 really tough games this week, And so I'm going to wait till after Saturday's game to even talk about the tournament again. And then at that point, of course, who we're playing, what time we're playing, we'll just begin our tournament prep.
Perfect. Thanks, Coach. We'll see you next week.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
Your next question is from Todd Hefferman with the Southern Newspaper.
Hey, Dan, could you just talk about Hawkins' clutch play this season? You know, just sometimes you hope your upperclassmen will be able to do that, but he's really been pretty good for you late in games this year.
Yeah, Todd, thanks, and you're exactly right. He's made some big-time plays in the last 4 minutes of some close games. You know, we've had some games where we might have stretched it to 8 or 9, but with 4 minutes left, they were close, and he's made big plays in those situations. Obviously, the big 2 free throws yesterday. He's playing with great confidence. If you look at his numbers over the course of the conference season, not just at the end, I mean, he's shooting 51% from the field, 44 from 3. He's really efficient. Everybody knows he gets that left shoulder shot. He's really good at it, but he's added some other things to this game. And I think our team has a lot of confidence in him at the end of the game. So I'm not surprised that he's making plays, but he's made every big one we've needed so far.
And not to get ahead of ourselves until next week when we're voting, but has he been your best player, or has Paris Lee been your best player?
That's a great question, and I honestly, I don't think we can vote for our own players. I don't remember, to be honest, but I honestly, right now, today, I'm not sure which one of those 2 I would pick. I think it kind of changes week to week, game to game. I think we had a stretch early where I thought Deontay was, and then I had a stretch recently where I thought Parrish was. Whether he's player of the year, I don't know. I'm just talking about who I'd vote for on my team. Yeah. And then, of course, you have a game like last night. So I'm not sure. I really am not sure. I hope we're in the situation where other coaches and people have to decide, but I'm not sure which one I'd vote for right now.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Coach, that was your final question. I appreciate your time this morning. Good luck this week, and we will see you next week.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Next coach to join us will be Greg Marshall of Wichita State. Wichita State game at Evansville, or game at home against Evansville tomorrow night, and then closing out the regular season on the road at Missouri State. Missouri State game will be on ESPN2, 11 a.m. Central. On Saturday, the Evansville game will be at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. From the Roundhouse, that game will be on ESPN3 nationally. Last week, the Shockers picked up their 25th win of the season, marking the 8th straight season with 25 or more wins for Wichita State. That's a league record and among one of the longest streaks nationally. And at this time, we do have Coach Greg Marshall on the line with us. Again, Evansville first of the week, playing the Aces in Shocker at the Roundhouse tomorrow night. And at this time, I'd like to welcome Coach Greg Marshall to the line. Morning, Greg.
Hey, Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Good. Talk a little bit about the Evansville Purple Aces, and then we will open it up for some questions for you. Preview tomorrow night's game for us, and then we'll let the media ask you some questions.
Well, you know you got to guard the motion. Jalen Brown and Ryan Taylor can really score. They get a lot of screens. And, they're a tough team. They always play defense physically and rebound well. So just looking forward to senior night. We got 2 guys that were originally walk-ons, and one of them now has a scholarship. So we'll be bidding those guys adieu, hopefully in their last home game. But we'll look forward to the week.
Thank you, Greg. Let's get now to questions for Coach Greg Marshall. Questions from the media.
Our first question is from Mark Berman with the Roanoke Times.
Good afternoon, Greg. Congratulations on the season so far and making the AP poll today.
Oh, good. I didn't even know.
What's kind of emerged as the identity of this year's particular Wichita State team as the season has gone on and your team has evolved this year?
Mark, I think we lost 2 guys to the NBA, and that's not easy to overcome for us. But what we've done is we've just gone a little deeper into our roster. We're very, very deep. We can literally play 11, 12 guys. Generally, we play at least 10. And we have a lot of offensive weapons. Last year, we had to get the ball to Ron or Fred at the end of the shot clock. And this year, we can literally attack you from all 5 positions. Offensively, we're scoring the ball at a much higher clip than we did even in the Final Four run and the undefeated season and the Sweet 16 year. So something's going right offensively. We've got a lot of weapons. But then on the defensive end, our numbers are better than they've been. And I didn't think that was going to be the case. I really was concerned coming out of the summer. But we didn't have any seniors, as I mentioned. So, we're starting a freshman point guard, and he's continued to get better at the point. And some of our veterans that were sophomores, rising juniors, have just evolved into more prominent roles where they played secondary roles last year and the year before. So we're really excited about where we are and where we can go.
Is it gratifying to you from a big picture pro game standpoint that you're able to lose 2 stars like you did, and yet here you are, March knocking on the door, and this team is playing in not just in the top 25 again today, but you're playing at such a high level. Is it gratifying that this team is? It seems like that's the definition of a program, that you can lose some guys, and yet you can still be a force to be reckoned with.
Mark, I appreciate you saying that. I have to admit the thought did cross my mind, and I know that I've been coaching for a long time and had a lot of good teams and great players, and we've had a lot of success going back to the Winthrop days, which you would recall. But nothing along the lines of the last 5 or 6 years where we've been more of a national story as opposed to a regional story. And the coaching staff and I did have some conversations about, if we can survive losing not 1 but 2 NBA guys and have another good year this year, then we really have something going, and it is a program and not just a team. And we've known that for a while, but this was the challenge. This was the challenge because when Ron and Fred depart, as good as they were, it leaves a void. They had the ball in their hands quite a bit, and I'm just real proud of Connor Frankamp and Landry Shamet and Deshaun Smith and Austin Reeves, and even the juniors, the guys like Rashard Kelly, Zach Brown, Rono Nerger, Shaq Morris. Those guys have done a nice job of just maturing and kind of showing the way. We don't have any seniors, so we can be hopefully we can finish this year out very well and be really good again next year.
If I could ask one last thing, it seems like this is a team that kind of quote unquote passes the eye test. That you wouldn't want to face your team in March in the NCAA tournament. But does it worry you that geez, do we have to win in Arch Madness to make sure we're in? Is the committee going to be more worried about resume than eye test, or how nervous are you or not about what the team has to do in Arch Madness?
Well, the history that we've been. The history says we need to be scared because we've never really been done any favors by the selection committee the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, every year we're a seed or 2 lower than we probably should be, and even when we were the 1 seed, we got that great Kentucky team in the second round. So, yeah, we're always concerned. But what I've said is, and I said it on national television yesterday, anyone that really doesn't know or doesn't. I don't know what the criteria they're going to use this year. They say they're going to more analytics next year. My question is, why would you wait? It doesn't make any sense. This can make us better, but we need to wait another year. But I just say you have to watch our team. And if you can't decipher that we're one of the top 30, 35 at-large capability teams, if we are not successful in St. Louis to winning the championship, then maybe, you need to let your spot on the selection committee go to somebody else, because it's a no-brainer to most people that watch that. Our team is very, very good, and will cause people opposite us in the bracket to say, oh boy, I prefer not to have those guys on my side of the bracket. But here we are again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Your next question comes from Dargan Southard with the Des Moines Register.
Hey, Greg. One of your former assistants, Steve Forbes, has been having a lot of success at ETSU this year. He's got them right at the top of the SoCon. Can you just speak to him as a person and as a coach and just his bounce back given everything, that transpired at Tennessee and having to drop down to JUCO and all that?
Yeah, well, first of all, he's an outstanding gentleman. He's a great family man. He's a good father. He's exactly the kind of person that we wanted in our program, and we were very fortunate that we were able to give him another shot at Division I. And the 2 years that he spent with us were 2 great years. I think we were undefeated one year and Sweet 16 after beating Indiana and Kentucky the next. And I was very, very proud that he had an opportunity. I knew he was going to do well. We texted back and forth yesterday during the Loyola game, and he used to work for Porter Moser. So I just thought, this guy's going to do great. And he actually interviewed and accepted the job at East Tennessee State 2 years ago before our season was over. And because I gave him that opportunity to. The East Tennessee State president and athletic director came to one of our practices as we were preparing for the NCAA tournament, hammered out a deal and got it done even before our season was over. So I feel a little bit not just gratified and proud, but responsible for having that happen because I gave him an opportunity to get back in D1. He's made the most of it, and that program, that's a team right there. That's another team. You would not want to see them as a 14 or 15 seed because he's got players. I've seen him play. He's recruited great, which he did well for me. He's done all of his career, and he coaches them up. And they had a big win at Chattanooga over the weekend. I think they held them to like 50-something points, which is very hard to do. And we're very close, and we stay in touch. And I'm very, very happy for him.
You kind of touched on it, but when you guys hired him, obviously he was looking for a second chance at the Division I level. What were the biggest factors in when you interviewed him and talked with him that trumped any concerns or anything that might have still been there from everything that had transpired before that?
Well, I will say this. First of all, I knew him personally, and my assistant coaches at the time knew him even better than I did. There were no issues when I discussed and found out the whole story behind the Tennessee deal. It was not his responsibility that cost them their opportunity there. I'll just say he was a victim of circumstance. He was doing what he was told, and in the end, there was just that cost him. So the bottom line is there was no issues with show calls or anything like that. He had done it for a long time, and they collectively, and it wasn't him, their staff made a mistake in the way they dealt with the NCAA and the university, and that's what cost them their job. So I'm proud that he's back in it. He's shown that he deserves to be in it. He does it the right way. He does it through building relationships and working his tail off. And he's a great man and a good coach.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg.
You're welcome.
Your next question is from Nick Schultz with Loyola Phoenix.
Morning, Coach. I'm doing a bit of an Arch Madness preview because it's crazy to think it's a week away already. So I'm just wondering how you guys are preparing. You're at the top of the conference. So, how are you guys getting ready for next week in St. Louis? Because anything can happen down there.
We're not doing anything different than we did in January or early February. We're just preparing for the next opponent. Right now, that's Evansville. That'll keep you, when you look at their offense and how well they run, it'll keep you up at night. So you just have to go and get ready for that one, and then we'll have a couple of days to prepare for our season finale at Missouri State. We're going to work hard in practice today and play hard in the game on Tuesday. And hopefully the guys are in the weight room and taking care of their academics so that when we go to St. Louis, we'll have an opportunity to be mentally and physically as fresh as we can be at this time of the year.
Perfect. Thanks, Coach. I'll see you next week.
Okay, buddy.
Greg, that was your last question. Appreciate your time this morning. Good luck against Evansville tomorrow night.
Okay, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.